If you're watching this, don't scroll, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story, it's a warning. Family can love you, feed you, hug you, and still bury you alive for money. My name's Harold Mason. I'm 68 years old, and 3 months ago, my daughter legally declared me dead. Yeah, you heard that right. Dead. I wasn't sick. I wasn't missing. I was sitting in the same old wooden chair on my front porch, sipping black coffee when I found out. A letter came in the mail from the county office. It read, Notice of property transfer, estate of the late Harold Mason. Late, as in gone. My hands shook as I read it again. My name, my address, my property, all transferred to my daughter, Lydia Mason. My only child, the same little girl who used to fall asleep on my shoulder while we watched cartoons. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. I mean, she called me every week, right? Checked in on me, asked if I needed anything, but then I remembered. She hadn't called in a while. Not since she'd come by with those legal papers a few weeks back. She said it was just something for insurance updates. I signed them without looking, because that's what fathers do. We trust our kids. That trust killed me, at least on paper. See, Lydia had always been ambitious. Grew up watching me work my whole life in construction. I built homes for other families, never realizing I was raising a daughter who'd someday want to own mine. After her mother died, things changed between us. Lydia became distant, cold. She stopped asking about my health, stopped visiting unless she needed something, and I gave every time. I told myself she was grieving. I told myself she'd come around. But grief doesn't turn people into monsters. Greed does. When I called her after reading that letter, she didn't answer. So I drove to her place, a fancy suburban house she could never have afforded on her salary. When she opened the door, her face went pale. Dad, she stammered, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? I said. You tell me, Lydia. According to this, I waved the letter. I'm dead. She froze. For a second, I thought I saw guilt, then something worse. Annoyance. Dad, she sighed, you don't understand. It's just paperwork. You wouldn't have qualified for the home grant if I was alive, I snapped. That's when I saw it in her eyes. She didn't regret what she did. She regretted getting caught. I left without another word. My heart wasn't just broken, it was hollow. That night, I sat alone in the empty house I'd built with my own hands. Every nail, every brick, all of it had my fingerprints on it. And now it belonged to someone who wished I was gone. But here's what Lydia didn't know. I may be old, but I'm not dead. And she just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because when you bury a man like me, you better make sure he doesn't dig his way back up. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, same as I always did. But that day, something was different. The coffee didn't taste like coffee. The silence didn't sound like peace. It sounded like betrayal. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at that county letter for hours. My hands were steady now. I wasn't shaking anymore. Because once a man accepts that he's been betrayed, he has two choices, break or build. And I've been building my whole damn life. I drove to the courthouse first. The clerk looked at me like she'd seen a ghost when I introduced myself. Mr. Mason, she whispered. Sir, your death certificate was issued last month. She showed me the file. There it was. My name, my birthday, my signature forged at the bottom. Lydia hadn't just transferred my house. She'd faked my death. It took everything in me not to lose it right there. Who authorized this? I asked, voice calm, though my knuckles were white against the counter. She scrolled through the computer. Looks like it was notarized by Daniel Shaw, same person who filed the property transfer. Daniel Shaw, her boyfriend. A man I'd met twice, the one who called me Sir, with fake respect and wouldn't look me in the eye. I left the courthouse quietly, didn't argue, didn't shout. Because in construction, you learn something about foundations. The higher the building, the deeper the base. If you want revenge to stand tall, you start by digging. Over the next few weeks, I dug. I went to old contacts, men I'd worked with, people who owed me favors. Even one lawyer I'd helped rebuild a flooded basement for back in 2004. Turned out Lydia and Daniel had sold my house already. The buyer, a private investment group under a shell company. But here's the kicker. That shell company was mine. Back when I was younger, I'd invested part of my savings into a small development firm with a few old friends. I'd forgotten about it, left my shares untouched. Now, that same firm had quietly grown into a multi-million-dollar property group. And through a merger, I still legally owned 18% of it. So technically, when Lydia sold my house through her fake paperwork, she sold it to me. I called my lawyer, Jacob, and told him everything. He went quiet for a moment, then said, Harold, do you realize what that means? Yeah, I said. It means my daughter bought herself a noose. The next step was patience. I didn't confront her again. I didn't go near her house. I waited quietly, methodically, while Jacob filed for reinstatement of identity, claiming fraud and false death certification. It took 31 days. On the 32nd day, the court officially ruled Harold Mason alive. The same day, I bought back my house, cash, full amount, $480,000, paid through the holding company Lydia thought was a stranger's. That night, she called me. First time in months. Dad, I heard about the ruling, she said, her voice trembling. You're not mad, right? It was just paperwork. Paperwork, I repeated. You buried me, Lydia. You took the house your mother died in and sold it. For what? A car? A new life? She started crying. I didn't. I just wanted a chance to start over, she said. You could have started over with me, I said quietly. But you chose to start without me. Then I hung up. But this wasn't over yet, because what Lydia didn't know was that the company she'd sold my house to was now her new landlord. And I was about to serve her the eviction notice myself. I still remember the day I went back to that house, the one I built with my hands, board by board, concrete by concrete. It didn't look like mine anymore. The porch lights were too bright, the new curtains didn't match the windows, and the garden, the one Martha planted every spring, had been replaced with fake grass, plastic flowers, artificial life. I stood at the gate, watching through the metal bars as Lydia's car pulled up. She stepped out, wearing sunglasses too big for her face, holding a latte like she was trying to play the part of someone rich. And for the first time, I didn't see my daughter. I saw a stranger who'd sold her soul for a mortgage she didn't own. She saw me then. Her body froze. The color drained from her face. Dad, she whispered as if saying the word might wake her from a nightmare. Morning, I said calmly. You've got mail. I handed her the envelope, the eviction notice. She looked down, confused, then back up at me. What? What is this? That, I said, is your 30-day notice to vacate the property. Her hands shook. You can't do this. I live here. I cut her off. Correction. You squatted here. On land that doesn't belong to you. On land your mother and I built. She blinked fast, the panic showing. You bought this house? How? I thought. You thought I was dead, I said, my voice calm, too calm. Turns out I'm not so easy to bury. She started crying again, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Dad, please, I messed up. I just, I didn't think, you didn't think, I said sharply. You signed my name, stole my house, forged my death. You thought, Lydia, you just didn't care. She fell to her knees on the porch, sobbing. Neighbors started peeking through their windows. The perfect little show she'd built. The image of the devoted daughter was cracking. For a moment, a small broken part of me wanted to forgive her. But then I looked past her, through the open door, and saw something that shattered me all over again. Inside, hanging above the fireplace, was a framed photo of me with black tape across the corner. A memorial photo. She'd actually mourned me publicly, told people I was dead to make her lie more believable. That was when any mercy I had left died too. 30 days, I said quietly, stepping back toward my truck. Use them wisely. I got in, started the engine, and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw her crumble on the porch, clutching that paper like it was the last piece of her old life. And maybe it was. That night, Jacob called. It's official, he said. Property's yours. She's got no legal claim I didn't celebrate. I sat in my recliner, lights off, staring at the quiet walls of my new apartment. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it haunts. I'd won. But it didn't feel like victory. Because revenge might fix what's broken on paper, but it doesn't fix what's broken in the heart. Still, I wasn't finished. Not yet. Lydia thought losing the house was the end of it, but she hadn't learned anything. And if there's one thing I swore on Martha's grave, it's this. My daughter was going to understand what a father's lesson really costs. The night I walked back to that house for the last time, the sky looked exactly like it had the night Lydia was born. Dark, restless, with a low hum of thunder in the distance. It felt like the universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to end. I parked the truck a few houses down. The lights inside were still on, but it wasn't laughter or warmth spilling out anymore. It was desperation. Boxes everywhere. Furniture half wrapped. Her life dismantled piece by piece. She didn't see me at first. I stood in the doorway for a while, watching her tape up a box labeled Dad's Tools. The irony almost made me smile. When she finally turned around and saw me, her face crumpled. Please don't take this from me, Dad. I've got nowhere to go. I walked in slowly, boots heavy on the wooden floor I'd built 30 years ago. You had somewhere to go once, I said quietly. You had home. You just decided you were too good for it. Tears streaked her face. I was stupid. I know that now. I was just angry. You gave everything to Mom, and when she died, you shut down. You stopped caring about me. I froze. Because as much as I hated to admit it, there was truth in her words. After Martha died, I did pull away. I poured my love into the land, the house, the work, not into her. She'd grown up in my silence, mistaking it for indifference. Maybe this was both our fault. I took a deep breath. Lydia, you took my name off the deed. You stole the one thing your mother loved most. That's not anger. That's betrayal. She shook her head violently. No, I was trying to save it. The bank was threatening foreclosure. I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I put it under my name, I cut her off. You sold it to pay off your credit cards, your trips, your fiance's nonsense investments. Don't lie to me again, Silence. Her lips trembled. And then nothing. No excuse, no defense, just guilt. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at her. My daughter, the little girl who used to chase fireflies in this very yard. Now a woman crushed by her own greed. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. There's a check in here, I said. Enough to get you on your feet. But listen carefully. You will not call me, you will not confine me, and you will not ever try to buy forgiveness. She looked at the envelope like it was poison. Dad, please. I stepped closer and placed it on the table. This house was never about money. It was about love. And you burned that long before you sold the deed. Her sobs filled the room. The kind that come from somewhere deep, where regret and grief twist together until you can't tell them apart. I turned to leave. Outside, the wind had picked up. The sky cracked open with lightning, throwing light across the fields one last time. As I walked to the truck, I didn't look back, because if I did, I knew I'd break. And men like me, we don't get to break twice. I drove past the old church, past the diner where Martha and I used to have coffee on Sundays. The radio was playing some old country song about second chances. Funny, I thought. Life doesn't always hand those out. Sometimes it just hands you the truth. And the truth was simple. I hadn't lost my daughter that day. I'd lost her years ago. I just hadn't accepted it until now. When I reached the outskirts of town, I pulled over and looked at the horizon. The first light of morning was peeking through the storm clouds. For the first time in a long time, I let out a deep breath, one that felt like it had been stuck in my chest for decades. Rest easy, Martha, I whispered. The lesson's been taught. Then I started the truck and drove toward the sunrise, leaving behind the house, the pain, and the ghost of the man I used to be.